In 40 years of pastoring and for the last 25 years, a large staff, I can only remember ever personally firing 3 people. And I'm just going to make a statement. I may be wrong. You would have fired them before I did. My gift is exhortation. I kept trying to encourage them. My wife's a prophet. She said, cut your losses, cut your losses. But anyway, she was ready to get rid of them. One of the guys I fired because he was mean. I don't know if you've ever met a mean person in the church, but he was mean. And so he went and started a church. And after 3 years, he left because his church was mean. He taught what he knew, but he reproduced who he was. So he came to see me one day and he said, I'm going to tell you what, you're right. I'm mean and all I produce is mean people. He said, I don't want to pastor these people. They're mean. And I said, they resemble you. They're just like you. You're mean as a snake and you've reproduced who you are. And now I don't want to be ugly, but sometimes if you've been somewhere for a while and you don't like what you've got, look in the mirror. But anyway, this isn't true in Georgia. It's probably not true in Virginia. But the bottom line is you teach what you know. So if somebody just knows stuff and they stand up and teach, big deal. But if you're a doer of the word, and by the way, let me just throw this on you. My favorite book in the Bible is James. I've written 2 books, wrote a 400-page commentary, exegeting every verse and outlining every verse in the book of James. And then I did a Sunday school or a discipleship quarterly for James recently called Shoe Leather Christianity. Matter of fact, I'm giving you a copy. You're welcome. Free. All right, so just giving that to you. But in James chapter 1 and verse 22, it says, be ye not hearers of the word only. Listen to this, but be doers of the word. But now we love to teach. So look at verse 25 in chapter 1. Be ye not hearers only, but listen to the change in the Greek word. Be doers of the work. Doers of the word are doers of the work. Now, depends on who's in your church, there'll be people to say, if you talk about work, you're a legalist. We're in grace, amen, just grace. Let me tell you how some people translate grace. It's what I call lazy river riding. My kids, I've got a place at Panama City Beach, and it's a half a block from the water park. So if you've ever been to Redneck Riviera, you know right where it is. My grandkids take me, and they want to ride the logs, and they want to ride this and ride that, and all the rides. And I said, nope, I'm going to be right over here. I get me an inner tube and get in the lazy river, and it carries you. And that's what some people think grace does. Grace is, let me translate grace for the Christian. It's power to obey. Grace is the power of Jesus to swim upstream against the cultural tide that'll drown your rear end in this, it's a Greek word, in this generation. So we got to do it. So here's what I did, and we'll deal with this for the next 30 minutes. I got to thinking, now, why influence? And let me make sure you understand that, because, you struggle with some New Testament terminologies and thoughts like, success and prosper, which, the Bible teaches to meditate on the word, and God will lead you to be prosperous and have success. And it's not the world. As a matter of fact, Jesus talked about you be faithful, and he would entrust to you true riches. Adrian Rogers used to say true riches are anything death can't steal and money can't buy. Those are true riches. So here's what I said, and here's why it's so important. Now, this is the greatest takeaway from today to me. You can't lead people you don't influence. You can't lead people you don't influence. They may call you pastor, you preach, but I'm telling you, you're not leading them unless you can influence them. And then you can lead people you influence. Homer Lindsay said it takes 5 to 6 years to become the pastor. And we may not like that. A fella called me the other day. You know what I do? I hang out with too many preachers. So my mind is like a transistor radio. I'm getting all these thoughts right now. Preacher called me the other day. He went through our city of refuge because he and his wife were burned out. I've had a refuge. Got 8 pastors there now. We totally take care of them, housing, counseling, everything. Get them healthy again, ship them back out in ministry. All right, so listen to this. He called me, and he's been at his church for about 7 months, and I could call his name right now, and he was so excited. Man, God's opened the door. My wife, she came to see me and embraced me and said, thanks for praying for us. We got a church calling us. I can't wait to be a pastor's wife again and love those people and disciple those people. And, I just can't wait. So he called me the other day, and he was kind of sad, and he said, I just want you to be the first to know I'm probably going to resign. Good night. I'm tempted to call his name. I said, why? And he said, well, I want you to speak into it first, but, man, they're just really getting on me about wearing a tie. I said, so you're going to quit? He said, what would you say? And I said, give me your email address. And he said, why? I said, because I want to email you now. I want him to read it and read it again. And I wrote him and I said, are you kidding me? You're going to quit because they ask you to wear a tie. And then I asked this question, is that a hill to die on? What would I do? I put on a tie. If you wouldn't, I'm not going to call you that anyway. I'm not big enough to call you that. I don't have any security here. If I was at Woodstock, I'd call you that. But anyway, but I said, you kidding? I said, matter of fact, they told me to wear a suit. I wear a suit. I said, I pastored a church, and they'd walk out the back door, and here's what they'd say. You hadn't been to my house in a month. And I'm thinking, you're here every time the doors are open. You're healthy. What do you mean? All our pastors always visit our homes. So what did I start doing? I visited homes. Y'all all right? You doing all right? And you may say, well, I wouldn't have done that. Might be. Well, I'm having too many thoughts here right now. I'm going to keep some of this stuff to myself, or you'll start leaving before lunch, and I want you to stay for the lunch, all right? But I mean, really, come on, give me a break. Are you serious? And by the way, you haven't earned a right to lead them yet because you've not come an influence in their life. So right now they're trying to influence you, but if you'll love them and be a person of respect and a man of integrity and a man of character, and then teach them, stay with me, and teach them, pour your life into them, teach them the way it ought to be, and then after a while they'll know what's really important. They know the price of everything but the value of nothing. And so hang with them for a while. And so then as a result, so I left my first church, and that little church just ran 35, but they weren't a house beside a house. It was a rural country community. But we were running 130 people and baptized about 30 or 40 people every year out there. The church I went to before I came to Woodstock, there had not been a new home built in 45 years in the community. It was a project. And it was the first Southern Baptist church in our denomination to baptize 200 people in the state of North Carolina. You can do it anywhere. John the Baptist preached in the desert, and the stinking king came to hear him. And you know what it says about, and he was a stinking king, Herod. You know what the Bible says about the king? Could you imagine preaching out in the desert and seeing the dust coming? What is that? It's King Herod and his entourage. What's he doing? He's coming out to hear the man of God. Because when you begin to be the leader, you even begin to influence the kings. And I love this, though. It says, and Herod, after he heard him, would do many things. What? It don't tell us. That verse drives me crazy. I want to know what he did so I can preach about it. And I don't know what he did. All right, so here's where we're going. If you cannot lead people you don't influence, how does one gain influence? And so what we're going to do is I'm going to walk through what I wrote and see if it makes sense. And it's what we've kind of tried to use in our own ministry. So let's talk first of all about the building of influence. And here's a good way to say it. Can you hear the truck beeping? Beep, beep, beep. It's backing up. The lot is vacant, and it's going to drop the material that's needed to build a life of influence. Now, why do you want influence? Let me skip to the end. I'm going to skip to the end of the message. Why would you want to be a person of influence? And by the way, don't act like you don't know what influence is or you think influence is bad. Why do you call an influential pastor in your life to say, I'm thinking about leaving. If you would write a cover letter for me to go with my letter to that committee, they might look at me. A leading pastor in America, it's in my phone. I just got it a moment ago. I was in California last week, and the church that Chuck Swindoll, the Evangelical Free Church he pastored, reached out to me. This ought to encourage you. I'm 64 years old and asked me if I would prayerfully consider. I can't believe I'm telling you this, but that isn't what I wanted you to know. So if you think you're 50 and nobody will ever look at you again, I'm ancient and they're calling, okay? So here's the bottom line. Because, you know why? Because I've still tried to influence people. But they said, if you are not going to consider us, would you recommend somebody? So why did the guy in Florida this morning in a wonderful church write to say, would you tell them about me? Why do you want me to tell them? Because I have influence with them. Would you put in a word? When Greg Laurie, speaking to me Sunday, said, why would somebody call me from Kansas? I'm just trying to get you to understand what I'm talking about. Hey, while Greg is with you, would you tell him about our church in Wichita? Why? Because if somebody else tells him. Why did Junior Hill call me the other day and say, Pastor Johnny, there's a great church in Corinth, Mississippi. I've been going there for years. The pastor really admires you. Please go and do a Wednesday night for them. Oh, Junior, I'll be glad to, Junior. But why? We do that with each other. Isn't that who influences who? So I'm not talking about bad stuff. I'm talking about influence. Hey, you're going to go to the Atlanta race? Any of you want to go to Winter Jam? Has it come anywhere near you? My son-in-law and daughter run that. It's the largest music of any genre in the world. 670,000 people went last year. All you've got to do is email me, and I'll give me an email address, and I'll get you in free, and you can go in an hour before anybody else. And I'll get you backstage so you can go hug Toby Mac, all right? So what is that? Are y'all tracking with me? That's influence. Hey, let me check. I know the general manager down there. Your wife put in an application? Let me call him. What is that? Influence. They may have, the leader of the personnel for the Cherokee County Schools plays Jesus in our Christmas program. So when somebody calls up and says, I'm trying to get a job teaching in your schools, do you know anybody? I say, yeah, Jesus. I'll call Jesus. And they're thinking, well, I know you're going to pray for me. I said, oh, no, Jesus runs that place. And but anyway, it's funny. That's influence. So what is it taking that? Because I want to lead my church. I want to influence my people. So when I stand up, and by the way, let me tell you what influence looks like. Hey, congregation, glad you're here today. Jesus broke our heart when we did Night to Shine with Tim Tebow, and especially having a mentally retarded daughter. And we don't use that terminology. We call them special needs. So we have a special need, and she's never been to a prom, but we're going to be able to host one here. And so we're going to have a good time. So we've decided we're going to build, because 90% of the families with special needs kids go to nobody's church. 90%. The divorce rate, over 80% of special needs kids. So with that in mind, we're going to build a department. I've got the space. I need the money. So I stood up on a Sunday and I said, we're going to take the Lord's Supper. And in the first century, you can read history, first and second century, that Jesus said they used to do the Lord's Supper and sing a hymn and go home. But we found out the early church would take an offering for the poor. I said, we're going to take one for special needs. And you didn't know anything about this, but I need $75,000 today. And let's forget about any size of the church. Let's just say you've not even announced, but you're going to ask for something. So put it there. And I got twice as much as I needed to close. So that's influence. If I can't influence them, they ain't giving diddly squat. They're going to leave there saying, there's preacher begging again. They'll not see the need because they don't know of any. Some of you thinking, well, tell me how to get this, because I need some money at our church, all right? So number one is integrity. Integrity, I tried to write my own definition, because if you look it up, and you can research some other people, but if you look it up, it really is wholeness, trustworthiness, which are really truthfulness. All those words fit into it. But integrity is just a big word to me. So I wrote this. It's a person you can trust at all points. Here's integrity. Hey, Pastor Johnny, we're thinking about having John Mark Clifton up to our church to teach, but we really want a man of character and all. You've been traveling with him now for a couple of years. Y'all spend a lot of time. Can we trust him? Is he who you would recommend? And if I would be able to say, as I wrote on a recommendation of somebody the other day, I have absolutely no reservations about him. None. And normally they'll say, were there any weaknesses? And I say, call his wife. And if you don't know, so do it. So here's another way to say it in my mind. I got a picture frame. Everything within that frame squares. I don't need to use any conjunctions, Greg, when I recommend somebody. Yeah, he really is a good preacher, and he's done good down at that church, but just between me and you, is this confidential? Yeah. He cusses bad when he's drunk, but no, but you throw something else in there. You know what I mean? It goes south. The conversation goes south. That is not integrity. Integrity is to you trust them in all points. So when somebody says that's a mark against their integrity, he shouldn't have lied, shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have done that. So characters made in the small moments of our lives. It's doing what's right in the little things consistently. Doing what's right in the little things consistently. It's not that you've ever really been noted for doing anything big. You just done things right consistently. It speaks of who we are and what we do. See, integrity builds trust when they get where they believe you. So when you stand up and talk about needs, they really do genuinely believe that you're bringing a need to them. So they trust you. Integrity gives, it's not a taker. It gives, it's not a taker. I'm working on a series now from a book that's really influenced my life that was written at the end of the 1600s and the early 1700s by Jeremiah Burroughs, and it's entitled Prosperity, Contentment, and the Glory of God. And I've just been overwhelmed of how they wrote back in those days that did now. And really the premise of the book is that the great challenge in life is to stay morally right with God when you prosper. Hardly ever does it say, beware of not having enough. No, it's always be careful when you're full. Read Deuteronomy chapter 8. What did he say? When you enter the land and you live in houses you didn't build, gardens you didn't plant, don't forget God and chase other gods. There's always that temptation that when you prosper, you'll go south. And I can't, there's a reason the devil doesn't want you talking about money very much, because it has enslaved so many of his prisoners. Did you hear what I just said? There's a reason the devil does not want you to talk about money in your church, because it's enslaved so many of his prisoners. You read 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 9 and following, and if you can read that and you can exegete it and study every word well and outline it and not preach on money, it's enslaved. It talks about it'll drown you. It uses 7 different words to talk about how damnable money can be if you ever let your heart start loving it instead of the God who gave it to you. All right, so moving on. All right, number 2. This is really good. Influence is not the same as authority. This is really, it's got to be understood. See, authority can be abused, but influence seeks to build. I wrote this statement. Authority often leads through position. Influence and integrity leads through relationship. So what do you mean by that? Staff member comes to me. He's got 2 or 3 staff members work for him. So we're in our senior staff meeting. He says this, hey, preacher, don't you think when I tell my team that I want them to do something, they ought to do it? I mean, I am their boss. First of all, listen to this. No one at Woodstock works for me. Everybody at Woodstock works with me. Jim Law's been with me over 25 years, pushing 26 years. Jim is not in a second chair. Jim's in the chair God called him to work in just as much as God called me. He's probably the most notable and sought after senior associate executive pastor in the SBC. Everybody's trying to find time to pick his brain. And we've worked together beautifully for 26 years. We really, really have. I mean, it's not just, talk, that wonder what goes on behind closed. We're best friends. As a matter of fact, one of the things I do, and when I write on how to find good staff, this is going to help you. Guess what? The number one trait is that I look for in a good staff member. Somebody I like. Somebody says, oh, you're supposed to love everybody. I do. I just don't like all of them. You think I'm kidding. And by the way, you say, you're not very spiritual. I'm as spiritual as you are in that sense, because not everybody in your church do you want to go on vacation with. Some of you'd skip vacation this year if you had to go with some of your people. And if you're saying no, you're new. You just got started. You hang in there, all right? So So here's what you do. You try to lead them like, hey, I'll tell you something. I'm pastor. You go do this. And I love the story of Jesus falling asleep in the back of the boat before the storm. Remember that? Had he been a Baptist preacher, he'd have never been asleep in the back of the boat. He'd have been up on the bow saying, hello, I'm in charge. But he's back there in the sleep. And the reason you can go to sleep is because he was in charge. I love that. I'm glad I came so I could hear that. So he's asleep. He's asleep in the back of the boat. And then they wake him up. Master, cares not that we perish. And what does he do? He gets up and he uses a Greek word that says this to the wind. Hush! And the wind hushed. Isn't that wild? And then he challenged them for not really trusting him. By the way, this is cool. When they were in the storm, they feared the storm until they saw they were with one that could calm the storm. And then, look at your Bible, then they feared the Lord. That's why the Bible says the fear of man is a snare. You fear God, you won't fear anything else. Proverbs, I read the Proverbs every day and I memorize scripture. Here's one, Proverbs chapter 28, verse 1. The wicked man flees when nobody pursues. You're scared of everything. But the righteous is bold as a lion. Can we translate bold? Freedom of speech. Doesn't mean that you're brass and I'm bold. No, it's just you have freedom of speech to say the truth to your people. Number 3, influence is about character. Character is what you know you are. Reputation is what others think you are. We're in the greatest evangelism movement right now we've been in years and years and years at Woodstock. And either at lunch when we're eating a sandwich because I hang out with you guys, or question and answers with John and I this afternoon. I'll fill you in on it. But one of the things I've been doing for years, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Chuck Kelly influenced me when I was with him. So when I'm out to eat, a lot of times, not all the time, but I'll just ask the person, I'll just say, I'm getting ready to bless this food. Can I pray for you? So my wife and I were out eating the other day, and she didn't want to go to eat where I went to eat. And I begged her. I said, I just love this place, and please, there's only one thing on the menu. And I thought, oh, sweetheart, please eat that one thing and let's eat here today. So we went. And we got in there, and the lady came to wait on our table and brought our food. And I said, hey, ma'am, I'm getting ready to pray with my wife. Is anything in your life I can pray with you about? And she busted out crying and left the table. My wife kind of looked at me. She's a prophet. She said, how's that working for you? You know, and it's, and I wondered, did I offend her that just by asking that? And then she came back in a moment, and here's what she said. Sir, let me explain what just happened. Nobody knows it. Nobody remembered. But today makes a year to the date that the best friend I ever had, my daddy, died a year ago. And I'm struggling today. And by you asking, it just made me feel that God hadn't forgot me. And she said, so I need to ask you, sir, tell me the truth. Are you an angel? And my wife said, absolutely not. They will balance us out, won't they? And so they did. Influence is about being genuine. Paul referred to Timothy in 2 Timothy 1, verses 2 through 6. He referred to him as being one with unfeigned faith. And let me just translate it. You're the real deal, genuine. And there, let's be honest. There are different people with different gifts and all of us are not alike. But let me tell you something all of us can be. Real. Be genuine. Number 5, influence requires humility. Hey, have you ever read this statement? Listen to this statement. No one's ever challenged it. I read it from Warren Wiersbe. Jesus, only one time in the entire Bible, ever referred to anything to do with his own character. Others did. Be holy, for I am holy. It's Peter quoting Old Testament. But Jesus in Matthew 11:29 said, learn of me, I'm meek and lowly. Jesus spoke of his own humility. The only characteristic Jesus ever named himself about himself was humbleness. What took him to the cross? He humbled himself. Didn't consider it a challenge in his life to go to the cross. So as an influencer, you have an ability to influence those you lead. All right, key words to influencing is relationships. relationships. It's one of the great needs. Influencers, this is awesome. Connects with others before they try to take them anywhere. All right, here's the old Hunt liner. Here it is. Locomotives go faster and further. So what is but carries them? I connect with people. I've got 2 people to call. Not prayed for you last night. And it just takes a minute to do that. You connect with people. They never forget it. Remember, it's being speaking. If you're an evangelist, what do I really see? I see all the people you serve now and ever will serve. See, I'm going to get to it, and maybe after lunch, but I'm going to get to a point of who influenced me, and I'm going to make a statement now. Please hear this. They influenced me when no one had ever heard of me. Everybody wants to be connected with the somebodies, but I'm grateful that there's that want to influence the nobodies. And then if a nobody ever becomes somebody, the nobody that influenced that nobody to repeat that. Okay, so it does. So who was a lot of areas in my life right now? My home. They came when I was not there a couple of days, and they're great friends from India. But the bottom line is, we'll connect with them some. But in the context, when I get back in my office this week, I still have 7 or 8 meetings in my office with people that need to see me for counsel, advice, or whatever. Pastor Johnny, you ever get tired of that? I used to, but I don't anymore. Why? I changed. How did you change? I'm growing. Everyone I meet with this week, I'm going to do one of 2 things. If I don't know them well, so I'm going to do evangelism. And Lord, I'm going to, thanks God. All right, here's one. 9 out of after church, my wife and I, we take new members so we can sit around a table and find out where their strengths are and how we can plug them in the ministry. Sometimes someone calls us, my daddy's not a Christian, he's going to be here Sunday. And I say, I'm free Sunday. Go to lunch as my guest and sit him beside me at the end of the table. And I'm going to share the gospel with him. Why? Because I've got to be intentional. Remember, why is that? Because the longer you know Jesus, the further removed you are from those Christ died for. I go to Dixie Speedway. I've been there the last 2 Saturday nights. I was at Dixie Speedway. Fastest growing 3/8 mile dirt track in America. Oh, you're a big race fan? No, not really. Why do you go? The owners are active members of the church, and they gave me a platform. There's an average of 8,000 people there, and I go out and share the gospel for 3 minutes. And then I give out Jesus videos, and we even do Mark New Testaments, but I've been doing it 25 years. And so the men we've led to the Lord, we took pictures of them, recorded their stories, and when you're reading through Matthew, you come to a page that's thick. It's a picture of the racer from Dixie Speedway and how he was converted, and he tells his story. What's that? It's intentional, because if I'm not out there, I'm spending all my time with the family, and I'm not out there where I can catch fish. See, Jesus said he wanted to make me a fisher of men. Did that change? So influencing others teaches them to reinvest their gifts. In other words, what I want to do is influence people and then them say, Johnny influenced me, so I'm not going to bury it. I'm going to influence others. Now, in order to influence others, you must keep growing yourself and have something in your life you still look forward to. So I read a lot, and so I'm always learning something new. So when I'm with people, I stay pretty fresh at the stuff that I'm sharing with them. I gave them one statement this morning. I get to give you this one, and then I've got 2 minutes. Here it is. Listen to this. When you wake up tomorrow morning, as a leader, you do not have problems to solve. You have choices to make. And if all you think about is having problems to solve, boring. And I want joy. I want to love. I love doing what I do. Doesn't mean there's some challenges, no. But I've been doing this long enough, doggone it, that I ought to be able to say, I quit, I'm out, I'm going to find something else to do. I want an office job with NAM, Lifeway, where I can just do something in the office that maybe helps people out there, but I'm tired of people. But I'm not. I still enjoy being in the mix, and so I want to do that. Influencing is a great stewardship of your life. So if you start just thinking of your life as an influence, Gosh, I got so many things going on. Oh, in order to influence others, you must really value them. By the way, you can't lead people you don't believe in, and you can't lead people you don't love. And they know whether you love them or not. And they know whether you believe in them or not. I've got to believe in them. Somebody says, I'll tell you what, I got the sorriest people I've ever pastored. Balls after my deacons. And I know it's that kid, and yeah, you take in, and after a while, crash in traffic. But anyway, so an influencer is a people lifter or a people builder. What people ought to say is, man, every time I'm with him, I just feel like a better Christian. They help me. What are you trying to help your people do to reach their God-given potential? And then here's the bottom line. Jesus Christ is the ultimate influencer. And think of the people he influenced. And ask me this afternoon about my discipleship. And about my discipleship, ask me how I pick my men. You know how I pick my men? I watched how Jesus picked his. That's a good. Let's just quit on that one until I come back. But let me tell you what, I'm going to explain that. Jesus' ultimate influence, and then I'm going to pick back up where I left off. Jesus, you think it's wise to put Matthew and Peter in the same room? I don't believe you ought to disciple them together. Why? Matthew's been working for the Roman government. We're ticked off. And remember, Simon Peter, even after he got saved, liked to cuss, fight, and carried a knife. Tell your people that. He did. He was saved, and he still had his knife, still cussed, swore, and liked to fight. And I wonder if he ever thought about, I'd like to take Matthew's ear off when Jesus is not around to put it back on. And why is that? He could have offended. So you put him in there. Then you put Thomas. And don't